Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. Haven't done a video for a few days here. Been busy up here at Derek's, bumping heads and consolidating information. But I got a little time here. I wanted to hop on and talk to everybody about some priority things that you need to know in regards to establishing your trust. When it comes to title, a lot of people have a lot of confusion about title. What is title? Well, there are three basic elements of title. First, you have a full title. The full title is simply both titles, known as legal title and equitable title. When it comes to the equitable title, we're talking about things that are inherent and we need upper expression. That's it. That's all you should have to do is just express. Same with the legal title. And the difference between those two different things is the equitable title, which comes first, is the right to possess and use. And this comes directly from Genesis 1:25 through Genesis 2:25 in the Bible, where it discusses what we have here in this earthly life. And we were given dominion of the land, air, and water, and everything therein. And that's our possessive rights of use. That's it. And this is what we use to determine a legacy. Father hands down what he's used in his life to his heir. That's legacy, passing on the use, passing on the possession and the use of something. When it comes to the legal title, that is talking about control and disposal. When it comes to the equitable title, we're talking more about a grantee position in the trust, and when we talk about the legal title, we're talking more or less the trustee position. However, both equitable and legal title extend from the originator. So when we get ready to express this trust, we need to comprehend those two elements in how they work. When it comes to that title, the reason that we have to express it today in written form is specifically because we have a military occupation. The military occupation is holding all titles in abeyance. And this is in the Liber Code. I think we talked about this yesterday, Article 31. A victorious army appropriates all public money, seizes all public movable property until further direction by its government, and sequesters for its own benefit or of that of its government all the revenues of real property belonging to the hostile government or nation. The title to such real property remains in abeyance during military occupation and complete. And so right now we're still under that military occupation. It still operates under the Liber Code. And that abeyance, what it means is it's the government, the military occupiers are merely holding title until a rightful and true owner makes a claim, a valid claim. Now, when it comes to the owner, it's not necessarily that you own anything. It's that you have the right to possess and use, control and dispose. And that's the basic simples of it. So when we get ready to express our trust, we have to comprehend those elements and how to operate those. Because if you don't comprehend that stuff, you're not going to get very far in any matters beyond that. No matter how well you think your trust is expressed or constructed, these are the basic foundations, and this is all inherent. Because people ask all the time, in beginning was word. You should be able to state your word and let that be that. Let my yea be my yea and my nay be my nay. But we find out we're having to make these documents. Well, that's because we currently have a military occupation, and in order to get the release in a peaceful manner, we have to express it on paper. And this is where the adage, the pen is mightier than the sword. And so we have to really learn the words and the terms of their construction and how to use them in order to be able to convey our yea and our nay in these modern times. Now, hopefully there will come a day where we'll be able to get back to being able to expressing it vocally. And it's still my belief that we can, if we're competent enough here to be able to walk into their courts and use the right expressions to express or right definitions of the words and stuff, clarify those so that we can express that trust right there in front of them. But I don't suggest it. Even myself, I wouldn't suggest doing that. There are a lot of things you can go in, and if you've got enough knowledge, you can get a dismissal. But it's rather hard to get a discharge and much harder to get a vacate for void. The information that we put on these documents, because of the words, is very important to comprehend each and every syllable and how they're used. That's why we ask for clarification in these court proceedings, because they involved in a case and all of a sudden they switch a judge. Then all of a sudden you got a judge that's using those same words, terms, and definitions in different manners. So again, you still have to point out or ask for clarification. So remember, people, when you're developing your trust, make sure, again, as I've always said, comprehend the words and everything that are being used. Because title is very important in and of itself, and it has those 4 different elements. Legal is control and disposal. Equitable title is possession and use. If you don't comprehend how possession and control is different from each other, and how use and disposal is different from each other, you won't comprehend legal title is compared to an equitable title, as opposed to what the full title is. So, and when it comes to these express trusts, you can't make claim to just one of those titles. If you're making claim to either of the titles, you need to make claim to the other title to prove it. Otherwise, somebody stands up and objects because they've got partial title somewhere. And this is the problem. We're giving up all these documents we sign and everything. We're signing over some kind of title, some kind of possessive use or controlled disposal. And if we don't comprehend that here real soon, we're going to end up getting slaughtered. So think about this stuff, people, and remember, get back to the roots of the words and everything so that we can overcome all this deceit and betrayal that's being perpetrated on each and every one of us. As I've said many times, and as my mom confirmed many times, I'm no idiot. And by being no idiot, I've done a lot of research and things in various different aspects of my life in regards to whatever occupation or whatever I was doing. If I was doing sales, I had to learn about sales. If I was doing irrigation, I had to learn about irrigation. If I was a cook, I had to learn about being a cook. If I was a mechanic, I had to learn about being a mechanic. In regards to learning how to run my life, I have to learn how to run every aspect of my life and quit letting other people do that. So we need to get back down to the roots of doing that. If we really want to be self-governing and show that we can handle our affairs, then that's what we need to do. And we can't go about it half-assed. We have to do our due diligence, because, like I said, it's about the legacy, the passing on of the possessive use of what we're creating now, and that includes the intangibles. I talked about a gal or a brother of mine out in New Hampshire that's on the run because grandma's got a concern about the children's education. And he came to visit me in Waterloo once, and it was amazing how this 8 and 10-year-old girl, instead of going to the library to get books that somebody else wrote and made, at 8 and 10 years old, they were making their own books, literally making their own books from scratch, make their own binders, gluing all their paper together, sewing it all up, and then writing in it and making their own journals. And that's stuff that we need to do so we can turn around and pass that use on, that possessive use on to our heirs. That's what the legacy is. That's what your tract is. Tract, T-R-A-C-T, as in contract and interact. They're all active or actions based in time, not in place, in time. How long has that property been in your family? Well, the tract would be 152 years. My great-great-grandpa owned it and passed it on to my great-grandfather, who passed it on to my father, who passed it on to me. That's your tract of land. That's your title, and it's kept private. So again, get back to the origins of everything. Get back to the origins of where you come from, where the words come from, where the possession and use comes from, inherently granted by our Creator. And if we don't know how to express this on paper, and that's what it is, it's practice. It's just like when you're in grade school and you're practicing math and reading and writing and all that. You do it on paper so you get a visual aspect. Same thing here. You're going to do it on paper so you can get a visual aspect. Practice writing these words down when you do the research. Practice putting statements together that you think are comprehensive in asserting your position in life. It's the only way you're going to be able to express it. Got to do it in writing so that they recognize it. And that means you got to use the words that they recognize too. Once that's done and it's established on the record, people will know you. The governing people in that community will begin to know you because you operate differently. You operate differently than even they do. There are elements we're finding that we're able to step above and beyond what these community leaders are doing because they're not even accessing this kind of information. It's not that they can't. It's just that the people that have them, that are playing them as puppets, don't want them to know either. So when people like us learn this stuff and are able to assert it and step above and beyond that, and it makes it seem like we're not untouchable, just using our wits. We're applying it properly, peacefully, and forcefully. In the beginning was Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was God. So long as I follow His way, I shall be faultless, just like Abraham. So, anybody got any questions? Yeah, Kaylin Craig says wordsmith. You gotta become a wordsmith. That's one of the monikers I take on as a wordsmith. I'm gonna hammer them words down into the way I need to make them and use them accordingly. It's like when we talk about the defendant. When you start breaking that down in concise English, you realize that defendant is what's known as an abstract noun and is a complete fiction, then how can it possibly be yourself? It can't. So we have to think about this stuff, and when we're doing this wordsmithing, we have to hammer them out in a way that they make sense for us and others, so that they can recognize it. Otherwise, all the wordsmithing we do isn't really wordsmithing; it's just confusion, which is basically where we're at today. That's what they've done. They've wordsmithed the words. They've wordsmithed Latin and made this language known as English. And here we are today, where we think we know English, and we're proud to admit that we know English, but yet we're babbling. So when we get down to the roots again, like I said, get down to the origin of the words and where they come from, how they were originally used, and are able to clarify that today in our own expression, that's when we start overcoming things. So we have to realize that. In the meantime, I'm going to drop my PayPal later in the comments. Anybody that would kindly help out, I always appreciate it. It's not required. Every little bit counts. I don't care if it's $5 or $1,000. It's up to you. But like I said, I can only help myself by helping you, and vice versa. So please help yourself. In the meantime, remember, if it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't be doing this. God bless and have a great day. Bye.